Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Welcome, Bruce.
Hey, David, how you doing?
Good, and welcome to the wisest hockey fans in the world, Cult of Hockey readers and listeners. Thanks for tuning in. All right, Bruce. Today we're going to be talking about prospects, specifically the Oilers' heavily loaded rightorium of prospects on the right side. Peter Shelley did not do a whole lot right in the end as Oilers GM, but he did a few things right. Traded for Cam Talbot, Zach Cassian, and he certainly loaded up the right side of the prospect wing of defense with some good players, because there really are some good players, and we're going to talk about six of them, and we're going to talk about Evan Bouchard, Joel Persson, Mike Kesselring, Phil Kemp, Ethan Bear, and Philippe Berglund, the Swedish prospect. So, what would you say, Bruce? What you give Charlie credit for this?
Absolutely. In fact, last year at the very end of our prospect series, I used that exact word in jest. Welcome to the rightorium, because my good friend Lowtide has been talking about the leftorium all this time. And when Peter Shirley took over the Oilers, there was exactly two defensemen, left-shooting defensemen, that were two right-shot defensemen that were in the system. And so he really did build that up. And now we have, in fact, if you look at our top 20 prospects, there's more right defensemen, 6, than there are at any other position. And in fact, more right defensemen than there are wingers of both sides combined. So we got a few guys to talk about. Some of them near the bottom of the top 20, other ones near the top. So
six right shot D in the top 20 and 4 left shot D.
Yeah, lots of D.
So lots of D. Oilers, and that's good. You got to have lots of D. And Bruce, when we go back previous from the 24 before Shirley came in and started drafting right shot D, and he's brought in about one a year at least.
Easily.
2014, the Oilers didn't draft a right shot demon. They drafted William Lagesson, left shot demon. 2013, they drafted Ben Betker in the 6th round, and Darnell Nurse in the 1st round, both left shot demon.
Both.
2012, Joey LaLigia and Eric Gustafsson,
both lefties.
Yeah, and we won't get into the pain and ongoing pain and suffering we endure when we think about Eric Gustafsson and how the Oilers let him get away. 2011, David Musil, Oscar Clefbaum, Dylan Simpson, and Martin Gernat. Let me just check Gernat. Do you recall? The other guys are all lefties, and Martin
lefty.
Gernat is a lefty. Jesus. Okay. 2010, Martin Marincin.
Brandon Davidson,
lefty. Jeremy Blaine.
He was a righty, but we never saw the guy.
4th round pick. I don't even know if I don't think he got offered a pro contract.
No, he never got signed.
Never became a pro player. 2009 2009 draft. Got that right finally. Kyle Bigos and Troy Hesketh.
At least one of them was righties. I mean, we never saw those guys. I mean, they might as well have been ambidextrous for all the good they were. Or they might as well have been double amputees for all the good they were,
Troy Hesketh he was taken in the 3rd round, but such a non-entity, they don't even list whether he's a left or a right shot.
Enough said.
Hockey DB. Kyle Bigos shot right, but he never earned a pro contract either. 2008 draft, Johan Moten, left shot, Jordan Benfeld. Johan Moten did get a pro contract, did he not? Yeah, he did. Wasn't he at least 1 year over in OKC or wherever they were playing? Played one game with the Oilers, and he was a right shot, Johan Moten, Bruce.
Yeah, one game. Yeah, that was good.
Alex Plant, left shot.
There you go. 1st round pick on a right D. So.
Oh, was he a right D?
There's a right heart in the right place there.
He was a right shot.
Yeah. Him and Colton Tubert were both righties.
They traded for Tubert for some reason that's not apparent to anybody who's a Oilers observer in 2019.
Well, not in retrospect.
Not in retrospect. Anyway, he was kind of the Griffin Reinhardt of that era. Although I think they also got the first round draft pick that led to Oscar Klefbom in that trade for Dustin
Yes.
Penner. So we have to go back to the last time they really
Jeff
seriously invested
Petrie.
was 2007 with Plant in a
Uh-huh.
right shot D, and that didn't work out. And then Jeff Petrie, was the last time they actually drafted one who worked out. The 2006 entry draft, Bruce.
Yeah.
That is 13 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Was the last time they drafted a useful right shot D man. So we got 6 of them, and I bet you
They were all picked in the last few years, except for Joel Persson, who was
signed. And I'm betting at least 2 of these guys are going to be solid NHLers, like 2 out of the 6, and maybe as many as 3. That sound okay to you?
Yeah.
Is that too
Absolutely.
bullish? Might be too bullish.
Yeah. Yeah, getting 2 out of 6 would be all
2
right.
out of
I mean,
6.
you need to stack up prospects, but they desperately need some of these guys to work out, and that some of them are going to get chances because that's where the space is in the depth chart right now is for a new right defenseman, and
I think we'll see 3 out of. Well, we've already
Mhm.
seen Airplay Oiler games and Evan Bouchard. We've already seen 2 in the NHL.
Yep, and we're going to probably see Joel Persson this year. So
yeah, he will probably
but
make the
whether there's 3 sort of impactful NHLers is a much more open question.
Okay, Philip Berglund, Bruce. Let's start
Mm-hmm.
with him, and I'm starting to dig into him because I'm writing about him in this prospect series.
Right.
And he is a 6'3", 206-pound right shot D-man from Sweden. He plays for Skellefteå in Sweden, the same team as Oilers' first-round draft pick. Philip Broberg has signed with. Is it Philip Berglund and Philip Broberg?
Yep, Philip and Philip. Phil and Phil show.
I might have been imagining.
But they spell their names different. And one's a Philip with an F, and one isn't.
So he was drafted in the 3rd round, 91st overall in 2016. Bruce, in terms of our prospect series, let me just go here and I'll tell you how he's been rated. I'm not going to tell you how he's rated this year. Okay. Well, I think I can with this one. We're not going to give anything away because I'm going to be writing about him in the next day here. He's ranked 20th. So he's the lowest ranked of the 5 guys. So he's been ranked. Last year he was at 12. The year before that at 15. The year before that at 14. And I think that spoke to a couple things. The lack, his early ranking, high rankings early on was because he was playing okay, but also because there were so few right shot D-men he shot, and also because the Oilers had so few good prospects.
Right.
And the main reason people are dropping in the list this year isn't they're getting worse because Berglund isn't getting any worse. He went sideways this year. It's because there's a lot more good prospects that the Oilers have. So in terms of his play this year,
and the other aspect, David, is there's more good prospects and there's nobody graduating up off of the list.
Yes.
So the guys that were prospects before are all still on the list. Plus, you have a bunch of new prospects. So the prospect pool is deeper, but you're not creating spaces near the top of the list because none of the guys that were in our top prospects last year, I mean, they're all still on the list.
And it does my heart well to hear you say that, Bruce. I just felt a little rush of dopamine hit there, a little bit of joy in my life when I heard you say that, because finally we're getting it right. Finally, the Oilers are getting it right.
The top 10 from last year's list, I'm just looking at it now. The top 10 of last year's list are all still on the list. So I didn't get rid of the prospects, and they didn't promote the prospects. They're just all still prospects. So that we got to get some churn in there, to use a Peter Chiarelli
You do need churn.
word. And some of that churn has to involve guys actually coming out the top of the water wheel and actually working their way up to the next level.
So Berglund isn't coming over this year. He's playing in Skellefteå. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Obviously, I'm not. He's playing in Skellefteå next year. And so last year he was kind of in the second pairing. He's worked his way up. From in 2016-17, he played 47 games, and he was on I think they go with 7D on that team, and he played 9 minutes and 30 seconds a game.
I'm sorry, how many?
9 minutes and 30 seconds a game. 9 minutes a game.
9 minutes? That doesn't sound right.
That's what he played. In 2016-17, he played.
Oh, I'm sorry then. Okay. Sorry. I thought you were talking about last year.
9 minutes. Okay. Then in 2017-18, so the year before last, he played 17 minutes a game, and that was a huge improvement and pretty exciting for him as a prospect. I think we were more bullish on him last year as a prospect, Bruce, because of that. Because I've never seen Philip Berglund play that I can remember. And have you? Are you there? Are you there? Have you
Yeah.
ever seen Philip Berglund play? I can't remember ever seeing him play.
I don't. He may have come over to one of the early camps, but I think it might have been one of the Jasper camps. I honestly can't
I don't think he has,
summon a
Bruce.
memory of the guy.
No, he's been playing in the Swedish league, and they started. Well, I guess he could have
No,
come.
I'm talking about the development camp.
Yeah.
He's never been in
Okay.
a training camp. None of the Swedes ever come over to the development camp because
So
their league is starting by then.
So in the last 3 years, his time on ice has gone from 9:30 a game to 7:03 a game, and then last year he got up to 19:02 a game. So that's actually another 2-minute bump from the year before. But his counting numbers didn't budge really. Like
They just stayed flat.
He's not putting up any kind of considerable points.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point you think, when is he going to come over? Like I guess they can, with so many other players ahead of him in Bakersfield, like with Bear and Bouchard there in Persson coming over, it really didn't make sense for him to come this year, Bruce. But
Right.
he's got to come next year, I think, if he's going to be in.
Well, they have to sign him by 2020, June 1st, next June 1st.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah, because he's a Swede. They draft him as an 18-year-old Swede. They have 4 years to sign him, but that fourth year is going to be up, and he spent the entire time in Skellefteå.
Yeah, I got to go let my cat in now, so I'll be back in a sec. Why don't you wax poetic about this player if you have any?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to wax poetic about him playing in Skellefteå potentially with Philip Broberg as a partner, certainly as a teammate. And the fact that he is, big, smooth skating, from what I've heard, right shot Swedish defenseman. I mean, what's not to like? The Oilers have no fewer than 6 Swedish defensemen in their system at the moment, and Berglund is probably the 6th ranked of those 6. But even he's not a terrible prospect, but he's just on the cusp of being a player of interest. But it is time for him to make a move, right? Physically make the move to sign and come to North America, assuming the Oilers want him to sign, which I think will depend on him having a better year this year. If we see his ice time take another tick up and see a little bit of movement in his offensive totals, which have persistently been in the 10 to 13 point range for 3 years running now, it'd be nice to see him bump that up to 18 or 20 points at least. I mean, I don't think he's a big offensive star.
Here's his problem, Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
He's behind 2 guys, Jonathan Pudas and ML Jews.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't know if I'm even anywhere close to pronouncing their names right, but they're both playing 20 minutes a game, and they're both on the power play, and they're both in their mid-20s. So he's been stuck behind those guys for 2 years.
And his other problem is that he's behind the 5 other right shot D that we're about to talk about in the Oilers system. How does he clamber up that list?
Bit of a long shot to make it in North America at this point. All right, let's move along, and next we'll talk about
Michel Kesselring,
our favorite.
Yeah, we both liked him. I've liked him 2 years in a row at the development camp. And more to the point, I liked him more this year. Like, I saw significant progress from last year to this year. And an absolutely gargantuan player. Well, honestly, physically, he reminds me of Colton Parayko. Like, he's that big size scale of a guy, 6'5", and growing. Apparently, he put on 2 inches and 20 pounds between the 2 camps.
Not Gilles Lupien?
He was big. Well, he might be Gilles Lupien too, but I'm always hoping for a Colton Parayko. It's our turn to get one of those guys, isn't it? And what I can't really tell you is his hockey sense in a game situation. Is he a guy that can keep the play in front of him, that doesn't get beat wide, that doesn't have some of the contain issues that you're concerned about? What I can tell you, he's got a lot of talent. He's a huge guy. He can skate. He can handle the puck. He's aggressive to the puck. And in the admittedly cramped quarters of the 3-on-3 half zone Billy Morris Cup that you and I saw, um, he was no shrinking violet. It wasn't like he was just standing around playing his position. He was jumping on pucks and driving the play and looking pretty good. Like
He
he can
seemed to
skate.
he seemed to understand the rules better than the other players. Like he was the one taking advantage of it. Like he had to
Hmm.
take the puck out past the blue line before and advancing in. And look, so when the other team was kind of sleeping in the transition, he was the one guy who was constantly forcing it and rushing in there and making plays. So you have to love that kind of gamesmanship and smarts. Like these are all highly
Hmm.
competitive young men trying to make a mark.
Hmm.
And he's the one who figured that out better than anyone else, how to exploit the rules of that particular game. So good for him. Now he's listed at 6'4", Bruce, in by Hockey DB.
Yeah.
What do you think he is?
He's listed as 6'4" by Elite. He was listed as 6'5" by the Oilers.
Six
And
four
they
again?
discussed it specifically with the player in one of the interviews, and he said he was 6'5". And I've
6'5".
seen other ones where he was 6'3", 6'2". Like he's growing like a weed. I mean, he's still only 19 years old. So who knows when he's done? But I'd say 6'5" is enough. Maybe he needs to get a little thicker. But here's an interesting from his stats last year in the USHL. He got traded midseason. He played exactly 33 games with each of two teams. So he got his splits. With Des Moines Buccaneers, he got 2 goals and 10 assists. And with Fargo Force, he got 7 goals and 15 assists. So he really picked up the pace after the trade. And he was with Des Moines last year, so he clearly got moved from Des Moines to Fargo.
And he had huge development year to year. Like he just was barely in
Yes.
the USHL. He got 2 points
Yeah.
in 12 games that first
Yes.
year. Last year he got 34 points in 66 games. That's
Yeah.
that's the kind of improvement that you like to see. No, I'm really who knows with his.
Right.
But I'm kind of bullish on the guy because
Mm-hmm.
I was astonished at his level of skill. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
for someone that big and
Mm-hmm.
drafted that low, he was drafted in the 6th round,
Yeah.
164th overall. He just looks like he could be a player. Like, and I wrote at the time, tweeted at the time, like if you went to that 3-on-3 game and someone said, "Yeah, look at that big guy out there dominating the game. He was their first pick last year." You wouldn't have said, "Oh, that's crazy." You would
Yeah.
have said,
No, that's right. That's
you would
right.
have
I
said,
mean,
"Yeah,
from
that."
a
That was now. Some people said, "Well, his skating's not quite there, and his reading of the game," and that's fair enough.
well, we don't know about the reading. The skating is one of those things where he's such a big guy that he covers a lot of ice. Like I didn't notice him losing any races,
No,
and I saw him winning some. And I mean, it wasn't that he was taking a million strides like like Drake Kajula or something. He was big and forceful and long strides and getting from A to B. And to my admittedly untrained eye about skating, uh, I have watched a lot of hockey, and I watch races, and he wasn't losing any.
he's going to a college this year.
Northeastern University, NC2A, and beginning a 4-year program up to 4 years. So he's a long-term project, but you know what? He's got the time. The Oilers don't have to think about signing this guy until at least 3 years from now. And unless he really excels, in which case they could accelerate the process.
Do you like him better than the next player we're going to talk about, Phil Kemp? Now, Phil Kemp is 6'3", 200 pounds. He was drafted 208th overall in 2017, and he's
Mm-hmm.
having a pretty distinguished career as a
Not
defensive
bad.
defenseman at Yale.
Yale
He's
University.
playing regularly. He made the under 20 team for the United States this
Mm-hmm.
past year at the World Junior Tournament, which is that's a damn good team. I mean, that's like making they're at this point they're as good as Team Canada, generally
Oh
speaking,
yeah,
and that's like being good enough to make Team Canada. So that's something.
basically.
So there's a lot to like about this player too. He's really rugged. He's
Mm-hmm.
smart with the puck. I have to say personally I like Kesselring just a little bit better now right now as a prospect, and I know it's probably a very minority opinion, and it's just based on
Well,
limited view.
they're
But he's
both late picks.
Kesselring's bigger, and he seems a little bit more mobile, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the only reasons. And
Yeah, I like Kemp's. I like the competitiveness he showed in camp. I like the composure that he showed in camp. Like, and again, I'm talking about development camp. Of course, we won't see any of these guys in rookie camp because that's considered pro hockey in NC2A. If there's any money in NC2A, it's to be made by the people running the teams, not the actual guys putting on the show. Don't get me started on that topic. But so we get the one chance a year to view those guys, where these development camps are considered amateur enough that they can actually come and rub shoulders with the guys on different tracks. He's gone through the U.S. national development team, but he spent a couple of years on what they call Team C, meaning that maybe he wasn't elite of the elite. But you know what? He was an assistant captain on their U18 team 3 years ago, and then of course he made the team, the U20 team last year, and made a couple of highlight reels with some great defensive stops. Made a memorable goal line save that was really bailed the Americans out in one game. But now he's already played 2 years in Yale, and both years 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points. So running in place that way. And his plus minus fell off this last year, but that's probably team related. So lots to like in the package, and a fair amount of pedigree for a 7th round draft choice. So certainly a player of interest, but again, draft and follow. But in his case, he's only got 2 more years before he graduates college, so his future will be known a little quicker.
The tough thing with these guys who go to these really highfalutin schools is that they're probably only going to stay 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, they're free agents.
Yeah,
so
if you wait it
may,
out.
or you can invest all these camps and all this. Well, you're not
That's what we
investing
saw with
that much, but we're seeing that with Marino, right?
John Marino, another right shot D drafted by Chiarelli. And some people still consider him an NHL prospect, but it wasn't going to be here because he was on the same list with all the same guys ahead of him. So they traded him rather than lose him for nothing.
So I doubt he signs next year.
Mm-hmm.
He could sign after his 4th year. I mean, there's a he might decide that he wants to join the Oilers organization, that he's had nothing but good experiences here. But this is the issue with these guys, is that especially if they hit when they're relatively young, like, well, Kemp was not young when he went there, but anyway, they could easily lose him as a free agent, is my point, and that may well develop. Any other thoughts on Kemp, or should we move on to the next player, Bruce?
Oh, just a drafting college player of interest from a distance. I see him as a guy with an outside chance, but probably a limited upside of 3rd pairing. Yeah. Maybe that's where, if I was to rank Kesselring a little higher, is because I'm not sure that he might not be a little, have top 4 potential at this point. And I mean, it's way, way off in the future, but maybe his upside's a little higher.
They're both kind of in the Matt Green category of hockey player. And I really liked Matt Green, of course. He was a fantastic 3rd line.
3rd pairing D man, but a solid one.
Yeah. And didn't he play U.S. college hockey, Matt Green?
He did indeed. He was a 2nd round. He was a 2nd round draft choice.
Very,
so not a 6th or 7th.
Very similar statistics in collegiate hockey, except he had way more penalties than either of these guys, being Matt Green that he was. All right, Joel Persson, Bruce. Do you think right now there's and by the time this podcast will air throughout August when we run profiles of these different players. So by then this will be decided. But right now, Kevin Shattenkirk's a free agent. What do you think, like, in terms of bringing in a right shot demon who can play on your 3rd pair? I don't think Shattenkirk's going to come here, but the competition would be Joel Persson for that spot in a way, if you're looking for a similar kind of player, a smaller offensive defenseman. What do you think of?
Obviously, if they could afford Shattenkirk, who may be getting bought out by the Rangers.
He did get bought out.
He did? Oh, okay. I heard he was on the short list. Anyway,
if I'm not mistaken, he was bought out today.
Anyway, he's I've never had a high opinion of Shattenkirk. I didn't when he was in St. Louis. I always thought he had a higher opinion of himself than he warranted. Talking about where he wanted to play and so on, and I guess some of that's just the player wanting to take charge of his own career, but he always wanted to go to New York, and then he went to New York, and essentially he's failed in New York. And so maybe he comes back with his tail between his legs. But what I heard was he filed a 10-team no-trade list, and all 7 Canadian teams were on it. So I highly doubt, with all the NHL options that are out there, that he would suddenly decide, oh, maybe it's Edmonton that I wanted to play in all along.
I agree, and he'll likely get more money. I think he'll probably. My bet is he gets like 2 years at about 2.5 million.
Or find a place with a tax haven, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not sold that he's committed to playing hockey. Honestly, I mean that's maybe not fair because I don't know the player that well, but I've not got the sense of a guy that's,
He is an elite point scorer, and even last year, Bruce,
yeah.
he was a
Well,
fairly high point scorer. At even
Oilers could use that, and I'll give you that. Joel Persson, our man Joel Persson, that's what he might be, but at this point, he's a total wild card.
You know what I like about him, Bruce?
Uh-huh.
He had this huge breakthrough year, I think at like age 23 or 24.
Yes, 23, yeah.
27-18. Huge breakthrough year at Vax Joe, which I know I'm not pronouncing correctly.
Good luck with that.
51 games, 34 points. And I guess in different parts of Sweden they pronounce these names differently even. So I'm adopting the southern Swedish pronunciation.
Okay.
51 games, 34 points as in 2017-18. And there was a major concern though, Bruce. Well, he had never done it before. He's an older rookie. He played on the same power play as Elias Peterson.
Right.
And I was wondering how much of that was related to this. But with Peterson gone, he just kept right. He had similar production this year, almost the same.
50 games, 31 points.
That was pretty
impressive. Past year, on loan from the Oilers, because of course the Oilers signed him as a free agent at the end of the 2017-18 season. And he's got such an interesting history. Like you look down his list here, Division 2, Division 2, Division 1, Division 2, Division 1. He played all the way from 2012 to 2017, 5 full years in the Swedish Div 1 or Div 2, what they now call the Allsvenskan, and even the league below that. And then he played his first Swedish Hockey League game at age 23. Well, this isn't the NHL, it's the SHL, age 23. And now he's played 101 games at the top level with 65 points. Right defenseman. And altogether, he played 121 games in Div 1, 77 games in Div 2, basically 300 games, almost equally divided among the 3 levels of Swedish hockey. But what he did on all 3 levels was score. And he's clearly a power play guy, but he's also clearly a puck mover and a playmaker. He's got a wicked shot. I have seen highlights of him scoring a few goals, and I've seen him, take the water bottle off from 55 feet, and good bomb from the right shot, bomb from the point. So if there's a niche for him on the Oilers, that might be it, because it's not like they have, Oscar Clefbaum, Darnell Nurse, Andrew Secker is gone now. To me, fairly mediocre point men. They're good defensemen, but when you're talking about power play, there's nothing special.
They're right at the bottom of, like in terms of like first unit guys in the NHL, like Nurse and Clefbaum would be right near the bottom as far as I'm concerned. They don't generate much in the way of clever passes or fantastic shots on net. And it doesn't look like Evan Bouchard, who has that skill, will be making the Oilers this year. So and that's the great thing about actually having Joel Persson, because they have him. They don't have to rush Bouchard. They have this guy. If they want someone to come in and run their power play, this guy might be the guy.
Yeah, well, he's at minimum likely to be a placeholder for Evan Bouchard for the first part of the season, at minimum, unless he's like an epic fail and just crashes right out, can't handle NHL forwards, and we don't know about that. But we've seen lots of Swedish defensemen come over and succeed in this league, and like I say, he's got many years of that level of experience. It's a huge jump for him. Maybe he's going to spend a little bit of time in Bakersfield, but I anticipate him at least being on the roster, maybe the 7th defenseman at first, and maybe a little higher than that Honestly, don't know what his ceiling is, but that's the exciting part, right? We really don't know if he's maybe he's Brian Rafalski and we just don't know it yet. But
Maybe he's Stefan
likelihood I see.
Persson.
Yeah, he's more likely Philip Larson, right?
Yes, he's more likely Philip Larson.
But
So we did get some good reports from Mike Zanier, who's over there,
yes,
former Oilers goalie, who's in that neck of the woods and works on the broadcast, I believe, and gives consistently positive reports. And
yes,
said
he
Persson's
does.
game really grew this year as a
Hmm.
defensive player. So that's just, it was really good to hear. So I think there's a chance he'll be on the third pairing with maybe Chris Russell as his partner. That would probably be, or Caleb Jones as his partner. And that would, the exciting thing to me, Bruce, is that both Persson and Jones, like in terms of like bottom end defensemen, finally we have some guys who can move the puck. Like we're not going to have Manning out there, Kevin Gravel or Petrovic.
Hmm.
Oh, God. And Benning had his struggles too, like quite honestly, for much of the
Well,
year.
we
He
will
came
be
on,
seeing Benning, I'm pretty
we will be
sure.
seeing Benning, but he made, he's shown in the past he can move the puck. He just regressed at the start of last year severely and then came on as the year went on. He can't have that, Matt Benning, or he won't have an NHL job next year. Caleb Jones is a player. He's as good as Matt Benning, I think, right now. And we'll see if Persson is or not. Bruce, next on our list is Ethan Bear. What say you?
Ethan Bear. Well, for all the promise that we saw from him, and he's a defenseman who grew after the Oilers drafted him. He was already a 2-year junior when they drafted him, and by his 4th year in junior, he got to the point where he dominated the WHL. He was the defenseman of the year. He played center point on the champion team, Seattle Thunderbirds. Him and Matt Barzal, or should I say, Matt Barzal and him, were part of a dynamite power play in Seattle. Uh, and he put up big offensive numbers. Then in his very first year of pro, he played 37 games in Bakersfield and 18 in Edmonton, like as a 20-year-old. And he had some real defensive issues, but with the puck on his stick or shooting the puck from the point, he was a puck mover. But his case is the same fear I just said with Joel Persson. Without the puck, he was taken advantage of. Now, that was as a first year pro. Of course, the idea is he's going to keep improving in the pros the same way he did in juniors. But his second year was a real setback in that he struggled with injuries throughout 2018-19. Played 52 of the 68 games, and he played eight of the playoff games, struggling with injuries throughout or a persistent one. And his scoring totals were pretty good. He got 31 points. He was a big plus player. So when he played, he was certainly decent. Uh, but there was never at any point last year the idea that he was going to be next to be called up and playing with Edmonton. It just seemed like he was running in place a little bit.
Yeah, he went sideways.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked him more this year than I have in the past. I think his skating has improved. And I would note that after the season ended, Bruce, if I recall correctly, he talked about the need for him just to totally raise his game in terms of off-season fitness. He's he's
Mm-hmm.
he's come to that realization, and this will happen with a young player.
Often, yeah.
He's just got to get after it in a way he has never done before. And he's right. This is a crucial year for him. He's,
Mm-hmm.
Bouchard's coming on. He's the golden boy. And there's the old person. There's all these other.
Guys nipping at everybody's heels, eh?
There sure is a ton of competition, and he's going to be a dominant. He should be a dominant AHL player this year, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of defensemen take 3 years in the AHL
Mm-hmm.
before they're ready for the NHL, and I think that's what we're going to see with Barry. He's going to be in the AHL
Yeah.
this year. He could, but in theory, he could beat out Persson for that seventh D-man role
Mm-hmm.
on the Oilers, and he could be the guy who gets the chance of running the Oilers power play this year if he really comes into camp, the different level of fitness, perhaps. And in his first year, 2 years of pro, he's played 53 games. His first year in 52, his second year. So I don't know if he missed much with injury in the first, or if that was kind of maybe
I
he
think
was
he,
sitting out some.
he did miss some time. He missed a few weeks at one stretch, I think, in 17, 18. Now, the big issue with all these guys, of course, is that they're all bubbling under at the same time. All three of Caleb Jones, Easton Bear, William Lagesson have 1 year left on their entry level contract. I mean, this year they can be moved freely between the minors and the NHL. Same with Joel Persson. He signed a 1 year entry level contract. I think he's free to move around for 1 year without having to clear waivers as well. And then next year, there's just not going to be room for them all. So this year is going to be a real battle for not just ice time this year, but for future positioning. And one or more of these guys is going to wind up getting traded just because there's no room for them all. And the Oilers are not going to want to risk losing them on waivers because they are good prospects. So this is going to be the position of strength they deal from. I won't be personally surprised to see Ethan Bear get traded.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll probably see 2 out of 4 of these guys in the Oilers organization next year, Bruce. This is
Yeah.
this is again, the Oilers needed to move out one of their veteran D-men this year so they could have that churn we talked about earlier, where
Yes.
one or two of these guys would get a chance in the top 6.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely crucial, and they needed to do it, and they made the call of Sekera for buyout reasons and probably injury and age reasons with Sekera.
Right.
Although I'm a big fan of Sekera, and I didn't like
Oh,
the
yeah.
idea of buyout. I do get it.
I am too, but I
couldn't
understand.
Probably couldn't move Russell in a trade because the short list of people, and the buyout potential with Russell was less. There's less
Mhm.
benefit, and Chris Russell's a good hockey player and a durable.
He's
So
more durable than
more durable than
Sekera, it's
Sekera.
turned out. Yeah.
And Benning is young, and maybe Matt Benning he showed so much promise at one point in the 2017 playoffs. Maybe we're going to finally see that player consistently this year. So it's a huge competition, and also Adam Larson, he's got 2 years left on his deal.
Mm-hmm.
So we might actually see 3 of these guys stick around and then move out one of the veterans.
Matt Benning's got 1 year left also, so he's
Yeah, so
fighting for his life.
that's right. They all and Larson is too, and any of these defensemen, none of them are so good that they can't be traded on the Oilers.
Oh.
I'm a big Darnell Nurse fan, and I'd like to see him stick. And I like Oscar Klefbom, and I like Larson, but none of those guys are like have
None of them's a
absolutely made
star.
the claim like you can't move them. So it's going to be some really great competition this year, and I'm excited about it because actually I think there will be, for the first time, real competition with skilled young players moving in instead of having to bring in a bunch of has-beens or never-weres to
Right.
fill the gaps on defense.
And unlike the forward position where you can say a lot of the depth has been specifically brought in by Ken Holland since he got hired, I think you have to give Shirley credit for building the depth of the defense group. He's done not a good enough job, obviously, with the top of the unit. But in terms of these layers of depth defenders, that's mostly Peter Shirley's work.
And this could reverberate through the organization for the next 4 or 5 years. They could be well stocked with really good prospects, and we'll talk about the last of them now. Evan Bouchard on the right side. Bruce, I was hoping, like, he came up and he played 8 games in the playoffs for Bakersfield. He got really limited ice time.
Really limited.
He put up 8 points. I was honestly a little disappointed.
Staggering that he got 8 points in the amount of time he played. He must have averaged about 5 points per 60.
I was disappointed. I thought that the coach might have played him more, although I understand it's like the team's set, right? Like they've been playing all year, and they got their guys. But anyway,
did he even play 10 minutes a night? I know there was a few games where he played like 3 or 4 minutes, a couple of power play shifts.
I wasn't happy with it. I liked it, almost everything Jay Woodcroft did last year with that team. I didn't like that. And I could understand bringing him in the first game and playing him minimal time, but he started to play pretty well. It's not like he played poorly when he got in. He played well. And I would have liked to see him play about 18 minutes, 20 minutes a game in those games, but that didn't happen. Nonetheless, when he did play, he looked pretty good. He also looked like he also did look, though, like he needs time in the AHL, just in terms of defensive focus, intensity, quickness, just getting on those guys in the defensive zone. He's going to have to get a little faster and a little smarter and better. And just, the offenses there, the passing, and of course that shot, Bruce. Man, that
Yeah,
shot. That's there, but the defense
yeah,
needs work.
that's an elite shot. And he's a guy. He too was one that I seem to recall one where he took the water bottle right off the top of the net. I've always loved that shot where the guy can, from distance, hit the very top netting and launch the water bottle. Uh, uh, and it was no accident. Like he does have a hard, accurate, quick release, and the gift it seems to get it through traffic, and that seems to be real because uh, last year we saw him play at several levels of hockey. We saw him play in the NHL to start the season. We saw him with London Knights a little bit. We saw him. Um, we saw him play with Canada in the World Junior Championships, and then of course we saw him with Bakersfield in the playoffs. And he scored everywhere but Edmonton. Edmonton, he got one goal and no assists in a limited role, and he showed off that big shot for the one goal power play goal he scored in his last game here in Edmonton. And otherwise, uh, it was all about the potential. And they probably made the right decision, don't you say, in sending him down when they did? If not, maybe they should have done it even earlier.
Yeah, they did. I
But
mean, they was fine. He got most of his season in junior, which is fine.
but when Clefbaum, especially Clefbaum, got hurt and Russell at the same time, I bet there might have been some in the Oilers organization wishing that Bouchard was still around because they were really shy on puck movers at that time.
Oh, would have helped, wouldn't it? It
Yeah.
would have helped. I mean,
So
he could have played third pairing.
mhm.
Um,
This is a problem with junior. You send him back to junior. If you send him down to the AHL, then you can bring him back up if you need him. But this was not the year the Oilers could have done that with Evan Bouchard. But
yeah,
he sure scored. I mean, he got 21 points in 11 playoff games in London. Now there he was playing ton of ice time. It wasn't like he was getting short shift there. Then he went right into Bakersfield and he kept on scoring despite the very limited. I mean, 8 points in 8 games. I mean, that would be good if he was playing full time.
okay, Bruce. What are your worries about him as a player? Like, if let's say it's 5 years from now and Evan Bouchard didn't pan out, why
Mm-hmm.
why did that happen?
Oh, the old John Willis question. Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
that's actually yeah. Go yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
he turned. Well, yeah, I think you guys got it from a book somewhere, didn't you? Anyway, the one, what went wrong? What the,
Usually, it's what went right. You're
yeah,
planning.
this is
You're
the
planning to trade Bouchard, and you're saying, okay, what if we're wrong?
the
In
pre,
5 years from now, it turns out well, what went right, but this is what went wrong because we're all
the
expecting
pre
him to
the
turn out.
pre-mortem, the pre-mortem. What
Yeah,
happened? What's going to happen to
and
Evan
it's don't
Bouchard?
say injury because that applies to every
Oh,
player. But what
yeah,
went
no.
wrong?
Uh, coverage, defensive coverage, um, just crispness in zone coverage, footwork. He's got some work to do in that department. The concern is that his nonchalance, which looks a lot like confidence with the puck, looks a lot like Justin Schultz without the puck, and that has got to uh,
He's a
that
very
I
similar player to Justin Schultz, but with a better shot, is
and
what I
young,
think.
and way younger. I mean, Justin Schultz was 22 before we ever saw the guy, right?
Yeah.
And so Evan Bouchard is kind of that player, but at age 19, with some of the same. Uh, and people say he's a lousy skater, but you know what? He's another guy. Don't ever see losing races. Like he really reads the play well, and he passes the puck and then he jumps into the rush, or he carries the puck and he jumps into the rush, and he finds the open ice so that when he does get in there, it's not like there are guys picking him off and pushing him off to the wings. He finds where the gaps are and he jumps in as a legitimate option on the attack, the fourth man on the attack, and that is a real strength of his game.
The only thing I could see going wrong is if he was rushed not only to the Oilers, but into a top pairing on the Oilers. If he's rushed into there and he is in over his head, the same thing that happened to Justin Schultz
Yeah,
could happen to him. So that's what could go wrong. If you rush him in, not to the NHL necessarily, because I think if Justin Schultz had been in the NHL as a third pairing guy, would have been fine and a
yeah.
power play specialist. If you rush him to the NHL and you put him in a top pairing too soon, his confidence could get destroyed and the fans could turn him against him. and a toxic environment can ensue, just like we saw with Justin Schultz. I don't think that's going to happen because there's Joel Persson ahead of him. There's Ethan Bear.
Mhm.
There's so many players right now ahead of him that he's likely to break in and play a year or two on the third pairing when he first comes up, and then gradually move up the lineup as he merits it.
Unless
So
he really does hit it out of the park.
yes,
But it's not like Justin Schultz comes in and he's immediately in the top four because you got Jeff Petrie and no one else, right? It's
yeah,
they do have options. I mean, the issue I suppose in Edmonton is they got Adam Larson and a bunch of third pairing guys. So the best of the third pairing guys is probably going to get second pairing ice time, and that could be Bouchard. But I don't think that's going to happen this year.
could be Caleb Jones on the second pairing on the right
Mhm.
side eventually. I mean, Jones played right side in
Mhm.
Bakersfield all of last year, and he excelled. So we'll see. It could be Benning. Benning could pick up his game. It could be Joel Persson. Like there's so many options ahead of Bouchard
For
in
now.
terms of age and experience, and he's got the most talent, offensive talent for sure of any of them. But so
Mhm.
I'm, when you look at it, there's cause to be a little bit more optimistic than in retrospectively there was with Schultz. You can see where it was going to go wrong with Schultz, that he was just rushed in there as usual and thrown in over his head. And he's become a very good hockey player in Pittsburgh when he's not injured, and didn't happen at Edmonton because of that situation. But the one difference between Bouchard and Schultz, though, is significant. Bruce Bouchard has a
Shot.
much better shot, and that makes him a much better. If for all of Justin Schultz's like other problems, if he had had a great power play shot and
Mhm.
could have scored regularly on the power play, he'd still be with the Oilers. That none of that would have happened, I don't think, because he would have been forgiven for a lot of sins if he was scoring 15 to 20 goals a year on the power play. That's the potential that Evan Bouchard has at the NHL level.
I'm not sure I'll say 15 to 20 on the power play, but enough on the power
Overall,
play
everything
that he
season, yeah,
threatens to get 15 to 20 overall.
correct, yeah.
20 being a high bar, but 15, I don't think that's out of the question at all. That he becomes a 15 goal scorer,
In the NHL, yeah, I think
which
that's
is great for a D man.
yeah. All right, Bruce, let's leave it there.
All right.
Thanks for talking.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.